Today, we will continue the journey to find out whether it's possible to beat the Brutal Mode EX Plus mod with only evolved plants, and we're not going to allow one single normal plant, including lily pads. This is part 2 of the series, so go watch the first part if you haven't already, and let's begin. Last time, we left off at Free 8, so we'll be starting here. This level introduces the Dolphin Rider zombies, which move even faster than Snorkel zombies, and we also can't stop them, as we have no aquatic plants in this challenge. The only way we can deal with them is to do damage fast enough before they reach the end of the lawn, which isn't a particular problem for us right now, because Sniper P's strong targeting priority will target them first and kill them very quickly. The entire level other than that is just coneheads and basics, but the next level, well, I think there's a different story to be told here. The dreaded Zomboni Buckethead combo returns once again. Last time we had this combo, it wasn't pretty and I had to use RNG manipulation to beat the level because the pumpkin zombies made it too hard for us to deal with Zombonis using snipers. This time though, they are pole vaulters and dolphin riders, which are a bit easier to deal with compared to snorkel zombies. However, these are still massive threats as pole vaulters make a gravestone when leaping over a plant, stealing away valuable strategic positions we need. When a gravestone blocks off an important position, we're better off restarting to save time because we're going to need all the help we can to beat this level. In this next attempt, I made sure to be more careful against pole vaulters and made sure to block them off using Hypno Nuts. I also got up Shadow Pea shooters to slow down the hordes of zombies and planted Sniper Peas to prepare the defense against stronger threats. However, as soon as Dolphin Riders show up, we can see the immediate problem in this level. Sniper Peas will target Bucketheads before Dolphin Riders, as Bucketheads have more health. With our only damage against them being our 2 measly Ice Elemental Shrooms, Dolphin Riders quickly broke through and used up our pool cleaners. I decided to try this setup again, but with an additional Elemental Shroom on each lane adjacent to the pool to defend against Dolphin Riders. And yet again, this also fails to defend because just 2 Elemental Shrooms aren't enough to fully handle Dolphin Riders on their own, as evidenced by this Dolphin Rider that broke through our defense. The only logical decision is to quickly get to free Ice Elemental Shrooms on each lane adjacent to the pool for enough damage that allow us to kill Dolphin Riders. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get up to free Elemental Shrooms on the bottom side fast enough to deal with more Dolphin Riders, and before I knew it, I was dead. I experimented with more plants to see what we could do about Dolphin Riders. This time I tried using Dusk Lobbers. Surprisingly, this actually worked out quite well. Well, I left out the part that I actually meant for the zombies and not us. Zombonis will decimate any Elemental Shrooms we place up front, and the pumpkin zombies are still absolutely ridiculous, turning every basic zombie into a target for a Sniper Piece. We can't deal with Zombonis when all the damn Bucketheads just block our shots. I played this level a few more times to test my luck, but these efforts were all in vain with how the lack of counters against Zombonis made it impossible to use Elemental Shrooms. This level would unironically be easier if Zombonis actually were just able to take one more pea shot to allow our Sniper Peas to target them before Bucketheads. Unfortunately, I think this level is probably impossible just like Free 7 with the current restrictions in place. I did the only logical option we had at this moment, which was to use RNG manipulation again. I disabled zombie variants from spawning to simulate the best case scenario of saves coming, and we end up not seeing a single zombie variant at all. With no more pumpkin zombies spawning, we can finally start reliably killing Zombonis. There are no longer our 20 Bucketheads preventing us from killing Zombonis, but instead, just the naturally spawned Bucketheads, which Sniper Peas can handle. For the rest of the level, I just kept spamming more Sniper Peas to scale with the number of zombies that get increasingly more the later we go, and they don't break a sweat killing of Zombonis now. Bucketheads and Zombonis get vaporized in under 10 seconds, and unfortunately, we did have to cheat to beat this level by getting literal perfect spawning RNG to not make any zombie variants show up, but it had to be done to show that it indeed is still mathematically possible to beat this level with only evolved plants thus far. And that's actually going to conclude all the pool levels for this challenge. So, let the nighttime unstarted games commence. Daytime pool was already bad enough, and now we have the additional problem of what nighttime is, as we now have to sacrifice almost all lawnmowers to defend early. It seems bad at first glance, but this will actually end up being quite easy because most fog levels are 1 flag shorter than pool levels, making the levels far easier to beat. Not only that, the special zombies in fog are all fairly weak, just like Jack-in-the-Box zombies, being relatively easy to deal with. The first level of fog is a fairly good indicator that we can get sufficient defense fast enough despite us having essentially no early game at all. But not every level is going to be as easy as the first level, as that was basically a tutorial. The next level is 4-2, and we have to deal with football zombies as well as one more flag than before. Conveniently though, we can kill any early football zombies just using a Hypno Nut, as Jack-in-the-Box zombies won't spawn before the first flag. Then obviously Sniper P spam will completely demolish any football zombies past the early game, which frankly, I can't see happen, but Sniper Ps definitely did their job here, as I went on to beat the level on our first try without losing a single Hypno Nut. That's because Jack-in-the-Box zombies actually have 870 health in this mod, so Sniper Ps will kill them after killing all football zombies on the screen, and they won't get a chance to explode. Here we go, level 4-3, and we have... Well, that is a predicament, isn't it? Balloon zombies with no plants that kill it. Well, actually, we do have Fragment Cherry, which is an instant kill, so we can kill them with that, but it's going to be quite tricky because of its slow recharge. But oh well, let's just see what we can do here first. Okay, then I guess we're going to have to do the strategy from the 2-seed slot challenge, which is sacrificing all our lawnmowers and pool cleaners to deal with balloon zombies. Surely, with enough RNG manipulation, we should beat the level pretty easily. So, is Brute Mode EX Plus's Adventure 2 beatable using only evolved plants? Answer, no. Unfortunately, it's impossible. You can't kill balloon zombies using literally anything because none of our plants can do any bit of damage against them, and lawnmowers also cannot kill balloon zombies in Brute Mode EX Plus. Thanks for watching this journey where- wait, hold up. We're not going to go out like this, right? And you would be correct, because we're not stopping here. I'll be allowing myself one non-evolved plant from now on to allow ourselves a way to stop balloon zombies and carry on with the rest of the challenge. Now, does that mean that the RNG manipulation in Free 7 and Free 9 might have been pointless because with the new rules, I could have just used lily pad? Yeah, I would prefer not to talk about that because I totally didn't waste all my time on these Now we are allowed to bring in one normal plant every level. This means I can use Blower to blow away the fog to finally see what's going on. And I think to nobody's surprise, this level becomes a free win now since all we need is just 4 elemental shrooms to defend all brown coats and then spam Blower for the entire level to kill off the balloon zombies. Cloud zombies can be difficult to deal with since they need 4 Blowers to be killed, but we can plant that in time before they can reach the end of the lawn, so we are good in that department. But the next level is not a free win, as we now also get the additional threat of Dolphin Riders to deal with, which are pretty tough to deal with without sufficient sun production. I can only get up 1 Sniper P before the first flag instead of 3 like in level 3-8, as the reduced sun production in nighttime affects us greatly. However, we do not actually need as many Sniper Ps as in 3-8, as we now have Blower in our loadout. Its slowdown means that we can defend against them with just half the defense compared to before, so just 1 Sniper P is good enough for the early mid-game. Progress was looking great by the second flag as I can consistently keep up the 1-to-1 Sniper P to Dolphin Rider ratio to ensure we can defend them off. However, I made a grave mistake when I placed a horribly timed Blower, placing it right before a wave was coming, and I thought I was fine, so I just kept spamming Blower until I actually realized I couldn't kill this cloud zombie in the water as it had traveled too far without being slowed down when it initially spawned in. We can only plant 4 Blowers before a cloud zombie reaches the end of the lawn if we plant the first Blower as soon as the cloud zombie spawns. So we lost in this attempt. Oops. To say the least, that was pretty much the only problem I faced. So I was able to easily beat the level after timing my Blowers better against balloon zombies. It was still very close at times, and too close for comfort towards the end as we can only barely deal with cloud zombies, but we were able to pull through and beat the level. Digger zombies show up in level 4-6, and they may seem deceptively weak at first glance, considering we have Gloom Shroom but better, Elemental Shrooms. But it certainly doesn't help if we can't get an Elemental Shroom to defend against the first Digger zombie in the level, and my luck was absolutely rancid as I got a Screw Digger that I had nothing to kill with, and ended up wasting 3 instant kills because of skill issue, and we ended up losing on our first attempt. After that massive skill issue, I played things a bit more smart by just saving my time warp until the Digger zombie popped out of the ground to mitigate the threat. The rest of the level after the 1 hard-coded Digger zombie before the first flag is not too hard, as our army of elemental shrooms will destroy all digger zombies. Just if you were curious, hypnonuts are not actually considered a root plant, so they can't block off digger zombies like regular tall nuts, so elemental shrooms spam will have to do. But that's about level 4-6 done. So far, surprisingly, fog hasn't been too bad for us. Buckethead zombies finally make their return in level 4-7, and unfortunately, just like in pool levels, they suck to deal with. If you enjoy bungee ambushes spawned by target zombies, this one goes into the history books for the most stupid one yet in this series thus far. Jack-in-the-Box right into the middle of our lawn, next to our elemental shrooms. Wow, I wonder what's gonna happen here. Buckethead zombies are the bane of my existence when I don't have umbrella leaf to deflect its bungee ambushes that go into the water. They are extremely difficult to deal with, even when we had the best plants in the game, and now we don't even have lily pad, which, granted, I could have actually used it here to beat this level, but it wasn't necessary since just Time Warp plus Elemental Shroom Ice version stall is enough to kill a football zombie in the water, after about 3 minutes. I actually found out that the best way to go at dealing with Buckethead zombies is just spamming the crap out of Ice Elemental Shrooms to stall as much as possible until Time Warp is back to send the zombies back to the start again, where they eventually die to our Fragment Cherry. Yup, that's right. Ice Elemental Shrooms are actually extremely strong for stalling, as they don't only slow down zombies with their attacks, but also knock back and stun zombies occasionally. With multiple Ice Elemental Shrooms, it actually almost perma-stalls any threat in the game, including catapult zombies in the water that are spawned by bungee ambushes. Elemental Shrooms attacks will keep knocking them back until Time Warp comes back from recharge, and then we can send everything back to the start again, where we can repeat this loop until we get a Fragment Cherry to kill any threat in the game. I mean, this strategy is so stupid because instead of having actual stalling plants, we can just keep pushing these guys back until the end of time. And this actually somehow beats the level. Level 4-8 is up next, and we get introduced to Pogo Zombies. Here's another fun fact about Hypnonut. It blocks pole vaulters but doesn't block Pogo Zombies, so we have to dig up our sunflowers to make sure Pogo Zombies don't jump faster, as they move faster if plants are blocking their way. Thankfully, having just 3 elemental shrooms is enough to beat Pogo Zombies without them jumping past into our house, and this is enough to beat the rest of the level with no micromanagement. Now, in level 4-9, the intended solution for this level is Magnesium to remove Bucketheads and Pogo Sticks. Instead, we're just going to do the stupid strategy again to deal with Buckethead zombies just like 2 levels prior. We also have Blover this level as we have to deal with Balloon Zombies, so we can also see what's going on in the fog as well as stall out lanes even more efficiently than before. I actually managed to stall this football zombie that was spawned in the water by a bungee ambush throughout literally 5 time warps, totaling up to about 6 minutes for us to go from it spawning to it dying. That's like literally 10 waves worth of time there, and this is what the stupid strategy is about. Utilizing how strong the stalling potential of the Ice Elemental Shroom is to slow down zombies to a crawl, and then using Time Warp over and over again until they eventually die in some way or another. It honestly doesn't matter anymore that there are even so many Bucketheads, because Ice Elemental Shroom stalling is so powerful, we can just utilize it to indefinitely wait out the level until we inevitably win. And that's how I managed to finish off the fog levels. Truly a strategy of all time. We have completed over half of the challenge, and thankfully, roof levels won't be as hard as pool levels. This is because we have now allowed ourselves to include 1 regular plant in our loadout. Obviously, I'm talking about being able to use Flower Pot. However, as we are now on roof, some of our plants will lose viability, notably the Bowling Nut, as we'll now no longer hit any zombies on roof and just fly off into the distance. I tried using it right on top of a zombie, as well as on the flag section of the roof, but unfortunately, none of those worked out, so we'll just have to not use Bowling Nut for the next 2 areas of the game. Sniper Fuse will thankfully work when planted in the back, so it doesn't get affected by the roof slope. Otherwise, I don't think there's much to talk about in 5-1 considering just bungee zombies aren't going to kill us here. Since we can't use Bowling Nut to counter letterheads anymore, I decided to go with Butterpole as it can permanently stun a letterhead in place. The rest of the setup is once again Hypnonuts with Elemental Shrooms, which are pretty essential this level to block off pole vaulters. I dig up the early Butterpole for more stun production so I can start affording Sniper Peas. And although there are Buckethead zombies this level, it was pretty easy to deal with since we can actually stall out the bungee ambush zombies by blocking their path. Zombies like Jack-in-the-Box zombies spawned by bungee ambushes no longer become nearly as threatening, as they will have to stop in front of our Hypnonuts and can no longer explode from the side. There is also the added benefit that Hypnonuts spawn a zombie when getting exploded by a Jack-in-the-Box zombie, so we will still have a blocker afterwards. That's about the first real roof level completed. However, one very interesting addition might shake things up here. Ladder zombies are coming, and we have been using Hypnonuts in literally every single level to protect our elemental shrooms. Does that just mean that we are doomed from here on out, just like against Zombonis? Well, not really, because you just need to take a look at this. Hypnonuts are somehow not considered a wall plant? Yeah, I don't know about this, but that is something we will take for sure, since that just means ladder zombies' abilities are completely irrelevant. Well, I say that with a straight face, even though shovel zombies are still able to instantly unplant our Hypnonuts, but they didn't even manage to touch our plants this level because sniper piece have their strong targeting prioritized onto ladder zombies this level, making this a breeze to get through. And the next level is the infamous 5-4, which has ladders, footballs, and pogo zombies. Almost always one of the toughest roof levels, this was actually a breeze to get through. Although sniper piece prioritized football zombies over shuffle zombies didn't end up being a problem for us to deal with, since 2 ice elemental shrooms are actually strong enough to kill it before it can advance any further. Likewise, all pogo zombies are also so weak that they will end up just dying to elemental shrooms, and this huge army of sniper piece is surely strong enough to kill off all the football zombies this level. And that's simply level 5-4 out of the way, breezing past the first half of roof levels. Catapult zombies make their first appearance, and you might be wondering how we can kill them if they have infinite health against normal attacks until they ran out of basketballs to lob. Well, actually, we have nothing to worry about once again, because sniper piece attacks deal true damage, meaning they can kill catapult zombies even if they still have basketballs remaining. The level is super simple since catapult zombies won't even shoot a single basketball before getting wiped off the board instantaneously by our sniper piece. Level 5-7 then brings all 3 new zombies back together into one level. Fortunately, the same lineup we've already been using for the entirety of Roof will still work here. Ladder zombies are still not that threatening as they are the zombie with the most health this level, allowing sniper piece to pick them off first. Catapult zombies are the second highest priority for snipers, so after all ladder zombies either die to elemental shrooms or snipers, catapults will be very quick to meet their demise, and each of them can get at most 2 or 3 shots only before dying. The biggest problem are the bungee zombies, which have the jack-in-the-box bungee variant, which can instantly blow up a large portion of a sniper P army. But as mentioned before, even if shovel zombies unplant a Hypnonut, 2 ice elemental shrooms are sufficient to stop it before they can advance further. This means that we have a really strong insurance policy, where if our sniper piece happen to die, ice elemental shrooms will hold for long enough before we lose, and if our elemental shrooms die, snipers will still hold their own and kill everything quick enough. With our weaknesses all covered, we can get through level 5-7 without losing against bungee zombies. Now, level 5-8 showcases the Gargantua exclusively, and I feel like you should know the drill here. Sniper Ps were literally designed to counter levels of Gargantuars where you want to get rid of them from the equation and focus on the other weak zombies with splash damage plants, like what we're doing here. Since Sniper Ps will synchronize together when all zombies on the screen die, starting from the second flag, all Gargantuars basically die in one go without a chance to even throw their imp, as all Sniper Ps will target the same Gargantuar and instantly drain its health to 0 very quickly. Pretty neat showcase of the snipers. And now, we are on to the final level of Roof. This level is about to be the hardest level in the entire challenge with the widest variety of zombies thus far. This is the only 4 flag level with bucketheads on Roof, and I think you might be able to tell what's about to go down. The first problem we immediately encounter is with bungee zombies. We still don't have Umbrella Leaf, and unlike in 5-7, this time we really need to keep all our plants alive because we need to deal with Gargantuars as well as buckethead zombies, and just elemental shrooms aren't going to cut it. Well, unfortunately, because the first bungee zombie of the level stole my elemental shroom and I did a skill issue by placing my butter pole about 0.2 seconds too late after I realized I didn't have enough damage, I had lost against this letterhead zombie. I sought a better strategy against bungee zombies that would make them less impactful, and I turned to shadow pea shooters. They remain usable on the roof when powered up by moonflowers as fumes pierce through the roof, and losing a shadow pea shooter or moonflower will be less painful than losing a sniper pea in comparison. Shadow pea shooters are also extremely good this level, as we need to slow down jack-in-the-box zombies to ensure they can reach our hypnonuts and blow them up. Just using one flower pot as a sacrificial blocker gives enough time for it to detonate before the 5th column if they're slowed down. However, it would quickly become obvious that Shadow Pea shooters did not fulfill the same role as Sniper Peas, as we essentially have no counters against Gargantuars that can one-shot Hypnonuts. I was only able to survive early on by utilizing Fragment Cherry to kill Gargantuars, and also constantly reusing Time Warp to stall out zombies until they eventually die. I was basically trying to employ the stupid strategy for this level because of our lack of damage from attacking plants to kill Gargantuars. And unfortunately, the plentiful Bungie zombies made it impossible to keep on stalling everything because they stole nearly half our defense away. This all falls apart when too many pumpkin zombies pile up and create a completely rock solid barricade that this defense cannot poke a hole through. I tried the strategy again as we had already gotten pretty far for the first attempt with a new strategy. This time though, I strategically planted Hypnonuts in the back column to tank for catapult zombies and not need to constantly replant my sunflowers. However, we weren't going to get very far before meeting our demise thanks to this amazing Bungie ambush. Don't even know what to say. Truly the most fair and balanced zombie in this mod. I figured that since Shadow Pea Shooters had not been doing us favors, I might also try a different stalling plan. The Butterpult to make use of Elemental Shroom's insanely high damage more. Butterpults allow us to permanently stall out Gargantuars, allowing either Elemental Shrooms or Gargantuars of our own to deal massive damage against them safely. I was honestly shocked at how well this did, because even though Gargantuars are able to break through all our Hypnonuts, the strong combination of Ice Elemental Shroom stalling and Butterpult stunning creates almost an unbreakable wall, as Butterpult will halt zombies in place for our Ice Elemental Shrooms to eventually knock back. However, this was foiled when catapult zombies that target a front column came in and just straight up killed our Elemental Shroom. We have found a reliable way to stall Gargantuars. Now, what can we do against catapult zombies this level? The defense is also still extremely weak against Bungie zombies as we have essentially no way to play around them. As soon as a Bungie zombie steals just one of our Elemental Shrooms, the defense is no longer strong enough to stall out the incoming zombies, breaking the formation of our defense. Like a domino, the loss of one Elemental Shroom means that we don't have enough to defend the lanes adjacent to where that was, leading to the loss of more Elemental Shrooms, and then so on, so forth, until all our Elemental Shrooms just die eventually. And even Time Warp stalling won't save us here, since we can't stall without a full column of Ice Elemental Shrooms. It's just too hard to recover from a bad situation when Bungie zombies can come in swooping in and instantly wipe out your defense in one go. There's no feasible way to build more Elemental Shrooms fast enough, even with Sun to do so because of their slow recharge. Is there a way to possibly deal with Bungie zombies without them being as impactful to us as they are right now? I come back the next day to try out some new strategies once again, and this time I try to utilize Shadow Shroom to hopefully just use a very cheap plant to tank for catapult zombie shots, while I can use my flower pots to instead stall out Gargantuars. Unfortunately, this plant failed once again after a pole vaulter from a Bungie ambush decided to conveniently kill the Elemental Shroom that was needed to kill an incoming catapult zombie. And yet, like a domino again, the loss of one Elemental Shroom leads to the loss of another Elemental Shroom, and then followed by a Jack-in-the-Box explosion that kills the Elemental Shroom in the row below that, and this run is basically dead now. I tried this level a couple more times to give it my last shot before I was ready to say that this was impossible without RNG manipulation, and nothing seemed to be worthwhile in this level. Fire Elemental Shrooms evidently lost even quicker than Ice Elemental Shrooms as they can't kill Gargantuars, and the classic Sniper P strategy continued to suffer against Bungie zombies this level, and it wasn't even the second flag when I had lost about 40% of my defense and having no sun to rebuild it. That's why, once again, I had to use RNG manipulation to beat this level. I turned off the zombie variants once again, which the main issue this actually resolves is with the catapult zombies. Remember when I said Elemental Shrooms with Butterpults can effectively stall out Gargantuars, but catapult zombies that target the front ended up killing my Elemental Shrooms? Well, that isn't a problem once zombie variants are no more, as no more catapult zombies will target the front. I made sure to once again employ the strategy of stalling out Jack-in-the-Box zombies with flower pots to make sure they can't reach our Elemental Shrooms, and this defense easily defended all the way to the 4th flag. However, even this wasn't enough against the amount of Gargantuars later on, and we were almost close to dying, but fortunately stalled enough to the point where we were able to make it to the final wave without losing any roof cleaners, allowing them to finally clean up the mess of whatever this is, and finally beat level 5-9. That's all for part 2 of the Only Evolved Plants Challenge in Adventure 2 of Brute Mode EX+. We'll be moving on to Night Roof next video, which will be by far the most challenging world yet, as we deal with the most difficult levels in the game. Make sure to subscribe to catch my next video, and thank you to our channel members for supporting the RCCH channel. For now, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time.